Coming up, the top 6 things new car buyers just don't investigate, but should. So, you've fallen in love with that special new car. Maybe you saw it in traffic or in advertising, online, in a magazine, a newspaper, whatever. You know, it's probably a good time to get the checks and balances right. Otherwise, down the track, that new car you loved so much initially might just turn into Glenn Close and start boiling your bunny. And nobody wants that. This actually happened the other day. A listener of mine on Radio 2UE in Sydney put a deposit down on a car in January 2015, last month. The dealer said not to worry, he'd fill in the blanks on the contract. Don't worry about it. Do you hear that? It's the sound of warning bells. I'm thinking air raid siren. Anyway, it turns out this particular car, a Suzuki SCross, was actually built in 2013. The compliance plate went on in 2014 and the car was set for delivery in 2015. Can you believe it? So you know what happens at trade-in time in a few years, right? You go in presuming it's a 2015 car you're trading in. The dealer then gives you the built in 2013 story and attempts to subtract another 2 years depreciation from your trade-in value. And you know what? He's got a point. The moral to the story is simple. Don't sign a contract or pay a deposit unless all the details are in ink on that contract. And get a discount if you're actually buying old stock, last year's model, because you are certainly going to pay for that at trade-in time. This is a real pet hate of mine. Spacesaver spare tyres are one of the car industry's great enduring frauds. They are of absolutely no practical benefit to you. They're limited to 80 kilometres an hour and they don't grip the road very well. What's not to like? Great fun on the freeway, in the rain, at night, with everyone else whipping around you at 110 k's an hour and you're stuck on 80. Insane. Unfortunately, the first time many people discover the car actually has a space saver is the first time they get a flat on the freeway in the wet at night. Always investigate your intended new car's spare tyre at the dealership before signing the contract. And sometimes you can negotiate to fit a full-size spare. If it's critical to the sale, the dealer might even throw it in for free. If you only ever drive 15 or 20 kilometres from home in suburbia, a Spacesaver's probably okay. But if you get out there on the highway, even only occasionally, don't risk your life by buying a car with a Spacesaver. They're a joke, especially on SUVs. One of the things I deeply respect about the mighty long-term Santa Fe, the one we're currently evaluating, is the standard full-size spare tyre on a full-sized alloy rim. You don't normally test drive at night, right? But there are 2 things you really should check here. Outside the car, you need to know whether the headlights, and in particular the high beams, are adequate. Some cars are just anorexic in the high beam department. Again, not so important if you only ever drive in the city or suburbia, but it's very important in the country. It's quite black out there at night in regional Australia. Nice to be able to see a kangaroo a couple of 100 metres out, not just when it's bouncing off the windscreen. That can be quite surprising when that happens, and interesting. So it's always better if the high beams on your next new car are more like Luke Skywalker's lightsaber and less like the 3-year-old kid's nightlight. Inside the car though, the reverse applies, doesn't it? Dimmers on instrument panels are great for driving in isolated areas at night. You dim the instrument lights right down to maximise your night vision out there on the road ahead. That's very important. But the big fat centre LCD display often doesn't dim sufficiently or at all for night driving. Bear in mind, neither of these things really matter if you're only driving in brightly lit cities. But it's pretty important on the highway. Both of these checks are vital for safe night driving away from the bright lights, and it's a dud deal to discover that your new car is a night driving junior burger after you forked out the big bucks and parked it in your garage. It's very hard to fix that at this stage. There are two ways to lose money on a new car. You can pay too much for it up front, or the depreciation can really burn you at the back end of the deal when you sell it. People are often obsessed with getting the lowest possible price up front. They're often ridiculously fixated on that. And at the same time, they don't even think about depreciation. So okay, all cars depreciate, but some depreciate like Dresden on the Ides of February 1945. A classic example here was in the recent Ford Territory review, which Ford fans hated principally because it's such a lemon, mechanically as well as on the depreciation front. Take a look. Two almost identical cars, the Toyota Kluger and the Ford Territory. So the Kluger would have cost $1,000 more up front for the KXS 7-seat V6. But at resale time, you're actually about $4,500 better off. That's almost 22% more cash after knocking $1,000 off the top for the purchase price disparity. It pays to do your homework on depreciation, and here, past performances of cars are extremely reliable indicators of how they will depreciate in the future. If you're not a dead-set car enthusiast, you probably don't focus too hard on the car industry's upcoming product pipeline. But you should, at least when you're in the market for a new car, because you don't want to buy a nice new whatever and see the manufacturer upgrade it 4 weeks later. Even a midlife upgrade, just the hair and makeup really, is a bit of a disaster because A, it usually comes with more standard equipment at the same price, and B, the one you just bought, the suddenly old model, becomes instantly obsolete and its value takes an immediate hit. You need to let your keyboard do the walking in this situation. Google the car you want and keywords like update, upgrade, plus the current year and the next year. Find out what's going on in the near future. The car industry is extremely bad at keeping that sort of stuff secret. So at least it's easy to do the research online. Here's what the car industry does with its marketplace dogs. The cars that just don't sell. When all else fails and sales have flushed themselves halfway to the deep ocean outfall, the manufacturer just bends over and drops its pants. Every time, like clockwork, they fire sale the price in an attempt to prop up or stimulate sales, generally unsuccessfully, because no matter how much extra icing you smear creatively over the underlying cow turd, you're never going to make a birthday cake. That's just how it is. Holden has dropped its pants and declined the kind offer of lubricant on the latest Cruise and Commodore, and Ford has just played the same undignified Dax-down desperation card with the Territory, although none of them put it quite like that in the press releases. So I guess that's good news if you desperately want a Cruise, a Commodore or a Territory. But if you do, get professional therapy. Talk about 3 of the worst possible automotive choices. Of course, if you actually bought one of these marketplace lemons a few months earlier, guess what happens to the value of your car? It just evaporates. Desperation discounting by manufacturers slashes the same amount from the resale value of the lemon that you own because used car prices vary directly in line with the replacement cost. So there you go, 6 things you probably weren't considering while you were poring over the specs and perving at the pretty pics of your possible next new vehicle. If you're in the market for a new car and you want some advice, or you just want to save thousands off the recommended retail price of your next new car without going face to face with a car salesman, visit the website and ask me the question, autoexpert.com.au. Leave a comment below to let me know what you think and subscribe for regular updates. I'm John Cadogan. Thanks for watching.